I'm supposed to give here my interpretation, I repeat, my interpretation of the link between Bauls of Bengal and Tagore. The thing is, I have to cover a lot of ground and about 2,000 years of social evolution of India to really link the two together, a lot of material. So I've tried my best to compact it and remove lots of it because it doesn't fit in. Please pardon me if I sound a little hurried. And please remember, it's my interpretation. I have not heard anybody else describe the link quite the way that I intended to. If it doesn't tally with your views, please pardon me. To start with, I need to define what in my mind makes a baul a baul. I suppose all of you know baul is a kind of a folk singer. They are from Bengal, of course, it's a region of India, and they wear certain kind of garb. They go from village to village delivering the music. They use certain kind of instruments. They have a certain style in their delivery of songs and dance. They also dance while singing. But to me, these are all skin deep and superficial. They look and sound like a baul. That doesn't make a baul. To make a baul, he has to also follow certain belief systems, certain principles, certain delivery modes, certain lifestyles to qualify being a true baul. And what are these? First of all, he is supposed to embrace a principle and a belief system that is defined as Shahajayana or Shahajjan in Bengali, or just Sahaja. It's a system that in Bengal is credited to have given it definition and meaning around the 8th century AD. I believe this thing goes deeper and further back than that. Anyhow, it's a dual word, Saha and Ja. Saha means together, in a way, and Ja means created, and it implies things that were co-created or created simultaneously to get created at the same time. What does it mean? It means we humans, from birth, were created with twin identities. One, which is simple to understand, is the awareness of self, of me, I, myself. And we spend our entire life as a series of interactions between myself and the rest of the world. That's easy. The other definition is a more subtle one. It's not so apparent. It needs some introspection to find it. And that defines us as not the selfish separate, but one in part of the whole. It's part of the infinite. It's one with the limitless. And understanding this, realizing this, is the essence of enlightenment. You find it inside. You don't go running about all over the world to find it chasing gurus. No? So this was a belief system that had to be adopted by the musicians as one of the prerequisites in my mind to qualify being a baul. And that was the source of energy that would help them create their music. That was not all. The delivery system had twin meanings. Their songs often had twin meanings. Upfront meaning was something very simple that people could relate to. For example, a fisherman casting his net, easy to relate to. But beneath that surface meaning would be much deeper one that would encourage you to delve deep inside your own soul to find who you are, that other identity, and be on a path to self-realization or enlightenment. So these two twin meanings of the song was an essential delivery mechanism, and how well the baul would weave these two together defined whether he was a good quality baul or just an average one. And lastly, he would perform an important task in my mind to represent the conscience of the society. A society in turmoil, society having frictions or pressures, and how to find a way out in the right path. So if a folk musician satisfied all these qualities, in my mind, he qualifies as a true baul. If not, he just looks like a baul, moves like a baul, a pretend baul, but he's got no substance. It's just color. So, what I want to say here is to start with, these bauls didn't invent all this. They adopted all this. This belief system, this principle, these theories already existed, and its root goes way back into our past, long before bauls came into the horizon. And I need to scratch on that a little bit to established the link with Rabindranath Tagore. By the way, somebody was talking about how to pronounce Tagore and Tagore. The way he would pronounce his last name and the way people in Bengal would is Thakur. The English anglicized it to Tagore, and the Spaniards will call it Tagore. So anyway, to find the link, I need to go back to the roots, which really brings me to present you a time frame which was pre-Christian, post-Vedic. I think all of you know about the Vedas. The post-Vedic in the subcontinent, when there was a great exchanges taking place at the spiritual thoughts and philosophical discourse, that ended up creating 6 major, you can say, definitions, or 6 major schools of thought that would enrich the body of nascent Hinduism. And one of these schools of thought was given shape by somebody called Patanjali, and his creation was called, at that time, Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which is today, everybody takes it as simplified as yoga, and some people even practice it around the world. Now, why do I mention it? Well, because of this twin meaning thing, on the surface for a casual observer, yoga would probably seem like some sort of a fitness scheme where people take up certain, you're expected to take up certain kind of postures and stance and engage in some kind of breathing control exercise and so on to keep the body fit and free of disease. Well, maybe, that's on the surface. But underneath, the real goal was to prepare the mind to reach a state of tranquility so that you can look past all these surface tremors and distractions and noise and delve again deep within yourself to find the path to self-realization. So, you see the similarity of what Bauls picked up and what this gentleman did in a couple of centuries BC to promote his idea of yoga. The underlying theme was neither invented by the Bauls nor by Patanjali in his yoga, but they just picked it up on something that was already synthesizing on the grassroots level, going that far back. And now I will bring you forward a few more centuries to past the birth of Buddha, who himself went on a quest to find a solution to this endless human misery and ended up having his own enlightenment, again, self-realization from within. He didn't find it from outside. And eventually his followers ended up creating a first major offshoot from Hinduism in the form of the Buddhist faith. And that takes me to another body of literature under the Buddhist umbrella, created between 8th and 12th century AD by a collection of Buddhist poems by a number of people. The name of that book is Charyapada, or in Bengali Charjapad. It was composed in Proto-Bengali, a language that is immediate ancestor of Bengali, as well as related languages like Assamese, Odia and Maithili. And it was adopted by Tibetans who came across the mountain, wholesale embraced it and wrote it again in their own alphabet and took it back and practiced it for the next 1,000 years till today. So it goes to show that Tibet had been spiritually linked with India for 1,000 years, although geographically they seem to be linked with China. And this branch of Buddhism, as expressed in Charyapada, is described as the Vajrayana vehicle of Buddhism. There are a few other distinctions. And this method follows closely the tantric practice of Bengal. Why I mention this book particularly is because it clearly defines the term Sahaja Yana as the principle that they adopted. This twin identity, search within yourself for the other one, and that is the path to realization. This eventually came up with people that were playing with the formation of Hinduism, picked up by these people under Buddhism, and also involved people from Tibet, from Bengal, from the practice of Tantra, all kinds of fusions happening. Now I take the story further to the Middle Ages. By now, the real Bauls had already appeared on the scene, and they were present in their music just like the way I described. And there was another group of notable folk musicians that also are perhaps worth mentioning. they came from Persia, and they were Islamic in faith. They adopted India as their home. They adopted the Indian languages, the food, the clothing, and they also believed, like Bauls, the path to spiritual salvation was through music. But they also adopted wholesale this Sahajirana principle and theory that the way to find answer to spiritual salvation is by looking inside and not looking, going all over the world outside, and to find the path to oneness with the infinite. Within that, they maintain the Muslim faith, but otherwise they are remarkably similar. Their music had dual meaning. Upfront meaning was very simple, and it carried deeper undertones. They performed, represented social conscience in some sense. So this Sufi group of musicians ended up being called Auls, A-U-L, and the Hindu branch ended up being called Baul with a P. And both Auls and Bauls were an integral part of the social fabric of India of that time. And now I move forward to Middle Ages, year 1500 and so, when the next great movement started out of India, social, spiritual, and religious. That has some reference to my speech, and that was spearheaded under the Vaishnavite banner of Hinduism by somebody who's called Sri Chaitanya or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It was a great Vaishnavite revival. Vishnu is one of the Hindu trinities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, Lord Shiva, Vishnu being the central one. And this person also created a book to define his ideas. Why did he do it? Is at that time, in the Middle Ages, around 1500, the existing practices of Buddhism and Hinduism were picking up signs of stagnation, some degeneration, some restrictive habits. There was need for a breath of fresh air. And as you know, Hinduism, unlike any other main religious system, is not etched in one specific gospel and then you cannot move from there. It had room for new thoughts to be implemented. So he provided that, and he decided to write down this movement in another holy book, and he invited another Pandit of the time, Advaita Goswami, for a series of discussions of his ideas of spirituality, religion, society, and so on, and have it recorded. So that's why that book exists. It's called Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is in identifiable Bengali, about 500 years old. And in that book, Sri Chaitanya, one of the most recent religious gurus to come out of India, identifies himself as a Baul. And he promoted the idea that Lord Krishna was an avatar or the incarnation of Vishnu. So therefore, Vaishnavite movement could be done by using Krishna as a front end. And his music, he used to sing and chant on the street with millions of followers. It was a major movement of the time. Often related to tales of love between Radha and Krishna. And again, I mention it because of this dualism. On one surface, this music about Radha and Krishna would simply look like a mortal love between a man and a woman, and we know everybody likes a love story. But underneath there was a deeper intonations, and that was humanity yearning for the love of divinity, if I may put it. Radha represented humanity, and Krishna, as an avatar of Vishnu, was representing divinity. Now, he addressed himself as a Baul. Some people think that he did it in half jokingly. I think he was dead serious. Not only that, post Chaitanya, all the Bauls of Bengal eventually converted to Vaishnavism, and in other words, he defined what the later Bauls were supposed to be like. He himself was a Baul par excellence in my definition. And then we come to the near modern age, that is the beginning of the Bengal Renaissance, at a time in India around, say, 1800, when Europeans had arrived at the scene, and they were setting up trading posts all across the Indian coastline, and they were looking for a deep water port inland so that it could be closer to the source of all the goods that they wanted to take to Europe and trade, and that's how the city of Calcutta mushroomed out of in the river Ganges. And along with it came the first set of Indian middle class. India didn't have a middle class; they were poor peasantry or powerful and rich rulers. So as this businessmen and traders and agents and all came up to participate in this great body of trade taking place between India and Europe, involving the Dutch, the Portuguese, the French, and the British. There was this affluent middle class coming up with disposable income, and they became the spearhead of next series of major social, religious, and spiritual reforms in India that made India or Hinduism brought it to the modern phase. And that was partly because they realized that it has relevance to Tagore and Link, that's why I'm mentioning it. They realized early on that the way things were going, Hinduism and Indian lifestyle was going to come crashing against Christianity and Europeanism, and they were afraid that Hinduism, as it stood at that time, will be swept off its feet because it was very old-fashioned. It had a lot of nasty practices that it had picked up, many bad habits, many restrictions, do's and don'ts, and disenfranchisement of certain people. So the way to, and that would be very bad for India because if they lost their religion, they will lose the link to their mythology, their history, their culture, their heritage, their self-respect. It would be really bad for them. So the way to prevent it is not to allow the Europeans to come in, but literally to grab their Hinduism by the scruff of the neck and bring it up and force it to let go of all these bad habits. And that was easier said than done, but it was spearheaded by these people around Calcutta at a phase that was today recognized as the golden phase or the Bengal Renaissance. These people needed to confront a very powerful body of religious heads that wanted to have a stranglehold on Hinduism and how it is to be interpreted, what people have to follow or not follow, and so on. They had to take them on head on and beat them at their own game, and not only force them to acknowledge that all these things need to go, and also take the control of the religion out of these people's hand and set it free. So the fact that they survived or they succeeded itself is a sort of a miracle, and as a result, the reformed Hinduism, partially reformed Hinduism, came no sooner with Christianity and prevented getting a bloody nose. So why I mention it is this: in these few generations of Bengal Renaissance, the Tagore family was very intimately involved with all this, and Rabindranath Tagore himself was a third generation. He saw this happening around him, and they were heavily influenced by exposure to all kinds of Indian culture, so that each learns the other and appreciates the total thing. It is not a monolithic society. So he was exposed to Sufi music, he was exposed to Baul music, he was exposed to other kind of ethnic music, tribal music, and all kinds of music. He was exposed to Islam, he was exposed to English language, Christianity, and European lifestyle. He was very good in Sanskrit, so he could absorb directly from Vedas and Upanishads all the spiritual resources and compose his own music and sing it on stage, even when he was in his mid-teens. So why I mentioned all that is his link and influence, and this Tagore and Bauls, it was not at the surface. It was not Tagore of his time taking sustenance for Baul of that time. But both Bauls and Tagore took their enrichment from the same root sources that went way back into the past. Now, his music, Tagore wrote 2,000 odd songs. So his music, some of them are recognized today as Baul-like, but I'll leave them aside, but because they're only superficially Baul-like. They sometimes have tunes that appear to be like Bauls, but there are a whole lot of other music that he created and not recognized as Baul-like, but to me, they are proofs that he himself was at heart Baul par excellence. And a whole lot of his music that he categorized as spiritual, even today people readily mistake it while they hum it thinking it's a love song. All Tagore was doing was addressing his concept of the Almighty, but it looked like I'm imagining a lover, a physical lover. So why it was, he used the same twin meaning, but he wove the two so intricately, so wonderfully, so seamlessly, that even today people make mistake and take one for the other. In my mind, leave the music aside now, take all his dance dramas and plays, he did not make them on trivia. He took very important, relevant social issues of the time, whether it's women's empowerment or caste system or this and that, and he used them as another vehicle to tickle the conscience of the society. He was performing the task that is we expect out of a baul, but in a much grander scale. And in his plays, all of them on critically socially relevant issues, he brought in many characters, baul-like characters, like for instance, Dhananjay Vairagi. Vairagi is an Indian name for a wandering holy man, or grandfather representing some sort of a wise old man, or blind baul. All these people have minor roles, smaller roles in this socially critical phase, but they perform the task of tickling the conscience of a society in turmoil, or society in confusion, society in looking for a way out. And so that was his duty again as a baul, I would say. Leave that aside and come to the vast body of prose that he created in more than one language. And there he performs direct critique of he becomes the conscience of a society and provides direct critique of our civilization. And I will mention just one, as I'm running out of time. It's a lecture that he delivered in person, read it out in English, and it's titled Robbery of the Soil, 1922. What did he do there? It was a direct critique of society, and not just India, Bengal or India, the whole global. So he was criticizing the developmental model of the West that the rest of the world was desperate to pick up and adopt. And he saw a future where this model was going to hurtle the Earth, planet Earth he's talking about, recklessly towards a dead end where all that will be left is a hollow shell and debris and junk. The planet itself will not be able to sustain life anymore. Why? Because we are exploiting the resources of the planet at a breakneck speed. We have created a religion of worshipping wealth to such giddy levels, a huge, unbelievable amount of wealth, material wealth in the hand of a few, where wealth itself is becoming antisocial, where nations will wage war against each other just to sort out who has the right to plunder how much of the planet, how fast. Now imagine 1922, environmental sustainability was in nobody's radar at that time. There are many more he did, but in my mind, he was a baul par excellence, just like Chaitanya Dev was a baul of his time in year 1500, Tagore was a baul of the 20th century, and in my definition, he was the last of the true bauls. Why? Because the society changed so rapidly since then that we, the society, have no room nor any capacity to absorb true bauls. We do not get our information from them, we get it from television. We do not decide what we need or do not need from them, we do it from advertisement. We do not have the mental setup to actually absorb true bauls anymore. So therefore he was the last of the last, since the society didn't have any room for true bauls went extinct. What we have is make-believe bauls, and he was the last final torch-bearer of a lamp that was lit more than 2000 years ago. And the lamp is now no more because we, the people, have no room for it and need for it anymore. That brings me to the end of my link with Bauls and Edwards. Thank you so much.